Welcome to Single de Mile today. And yeah, that's not what the video is about, but I think this is gonna be a really short, recap video of Golden State Warrior versus, the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? So yeah, the Warrior just ended their, game versus the Rocket series versus the Warrior series just ended last night, right? Just ended. And now, this matchup has finally came, right? So yeah, I think this is going to be another long matchup again because to me, the Golden State Warrior and the Timberwolves has a lots of weakness, and I feel like this is going to be another close series, right? I did not expect the Warrior Rocket to be a close series, right? I think the close series that I expect is the Denver Nuggets versus the Clippers, which I was right on the point, right? So yeah, I do know basketball, right? I do know it, right? This is going to be nuts because I've been paying attention with the Timberwolves and the Golden State Warrior, right? Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves in the previous series versus the Lakers, they should have swept the Lakers, honestly, right? But yeah, game 2 was the only game, that Lakers was hitting all their shots. They just play everything right, and the Timberwolves just has answered, and they tried to come back from a 20-point deficit, and it was too late. They tried to overcome it, but it was just too much, right? So yeah, the Timberwolves in the last game, I was not very, I guess the Timberwolves are not Timberwolves fan or just NBA fan in general. They're not very happy with Timberwolves because they kept letting the Lakers back in the game. Like I told you, like Timberwolves, find a way, to choke or find a way to do some stupid things, That's going to cost them the series. That's going to cause them, to lose several games, right? So, yeah. That's why I'm saying this series is going to be long again, right? So, yeah. The Warriors, the Timberwolves should have easily handled the Lakers because of their size, right? The size matters a lot. That's what I forgot to mention in the video. Like, how did the Timberwolves are going to handle the Lakers, right? It's based on size. So yeah, if you know basketball, this is why, a lots of team, are targeting, Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? If they have him, then the good chance of winning a championship is really high, and that's an ultimate cheat code. Like, you gotta get some really big guy that can be very dominant, right? So yeah, small ball is not a recipe to win championship or jack up 3. That is not how you win championship, right? And another thing is that you have good chemistry. You need, build a really good team roster, without so many trade, and you need to, have really good leadership, right? And not just really good players. If you don't have any of those, then that's not a recipe to win the championship, right? So, to me, Golden State Warrior and the Timberwolves, they're both, they're both not they're not championship contender. They're not. And I feel like one of the team has to win. So, because the sport is not that competitive, that's why we still have pretender even if we get to the Western or Eastern Conference final, right? So, I wouldn't be surprised if the Timberwolves beat the Golden State Warrior, right? This is the matchup I've been waiting for, right? Yeah, the Warriors, for some reason, never faced the Timberwolves, right? I waited 2022, I waited 2023, I waited 2024, and I waited 2025, and boy, oh boy, like, people have been waiting, right? I even predicted in 2022, like, if the Warrior faced the Timberwolves, the Timberwolves can still beat the Golden State Warrior, but turns out, I'm not talking about, like, eliminating Warrior, but they can win some games versus the Warrior, right? So, yeah. That's why I call it interesting, because I never seen the Warrior versus the Timberwolves. I never saw that, right? As I watch basketball, or maybe since I was born, right? Because I'm currently 26 years old, right? You go back to 26 previous year, Warriors been the player, but I don't think they ever faced the Timberwolves, right? This is a rare series, and I gotta stay tuned in for that. So, yeah, let me say this in scenario, this is how the Timberwolves can beat the Golden State Warriors, is their size, right? Yeah, because the Houston Rockets, this is why they dragged the Warriors to Game 7s, because, they trying to shut down Stephen Curry, and also, it's the size, right? But yeah, the only reason why the Warriors survived Game 7 is because of pure luck, and also Buddy Hield, was just hitting shots after shot after shots, right? Without Buddy Hield, they're not winning that series. They're not, right? And Warrior did a lot of dumb things too, that they shouldn't be doing, right? So Pozeski, missed a lot of shot, right? The Timberwolves just needs to figure out, how to shut down Stephen Curry, right? They take Curry out of the series, make him uncomfortable. They trying to shut down Jimmy Butler, and yeah, antagonize Draymond Green. That's all you have to do, And the Warriors are pretty much done. So, yep, and if they do that, maybe they can end up in 6 games or in 5 games, right? But we have to be careful of the ref, right? The ref can also manipulate the game, right? The Golden State Warrior, targeting the Timberwolves weakness is not Anthony Town, Yeah, just get Anthony Edwards, right? Anthony Edwards. Just antagonize him, There's just so many ways that can either go. So that's why I don't trust the Timberwolves that well, because Timberwolves, they can jack up a bunch of 3 points. So that series can also be boring, because what if Warriors and the Timberwolves all jack up threes? And damn, that's gonna be really annoying. And shots after shot, like break after break, it can happen, right? Don't say I didn't warn ya, right? So yeah, it's Rudy Gobert, right? Rudy Gobert looks like goddamn Will Chamberlain versus the Lakers, but the Timberwolves, they realize that they're playing against a tougher opponent, so this is not going to be an easy way out. So Golden State Warriors are not the Lakers. You have to remember that, Timberwolves, right? They are not the Lakers. And Warriors, the Timberwolves, they are not the Houston Rockets, right? They don't have a Jalen Green issue. So, yeah, but they need to exploit Rudy Gobert, right? I remember how Rudy Gobert just gave up, series after series. Like, whatever team he goes to, like, the team automatically become a pretender, right? He is not the leader, he's a goofy, tall, guy, right? He doesn't play defense really well, and he's pretty much a joke, right? If they somehow, get through Rudy Gobert's defense, then, the Timberwolves are also going to have trouble, and they may not have a chance of being Golden State Warrior, right? So, yeah, so this is an iffy one. This is what makes NBA exciting, right? And this is why, I have to make, a long video. I can describe, what the Timberwolves needs to do, what the Warrior needs to do, right? And shout out to Ime Udoka, gave a really young Rocket squad, how to be Golden State Warrior, right? Ime Udoka faced them in the final, and then he faced them right again. So, and I feel like the Timberwolves has the advantage, because obviously they're probably watching a videotape, like, oh, how to beat the Golden State Warrior, how to beat the Rocket. They still don't know who faced opponent, but they probably knew the Warriors are going to be out of the series based on experience, right? The Warrior has an experience, versus the Timberwolves, who are bigger, than them, right? So that's why I cannot bet against, Warriors or Timberwolves. I cannot, because I don't know, right? Sometimes, LeBron can be, very experienced. He's been in the playoff for like so many times, like he's been playing for like 20 plus years, and he still got eliminated to the Timberwolves, right? The Warriors, Lakers, but I think the Warriors are a little bit younger, and they're a little more feistier, and they play harder than the Lakers, right? Stephen Curry is definitely better than LeBron James. I have to be honest about it, whether I'm Curry or LeBron fans or not, right? So, yeah, but despite, Curry laying the Rocket, beating them 3 times, I highly doubt they get past the Timberwolves. Highly doubt it. Let me think of, like, what's Steve Kerr going to do? Steve Kerr is, I don't know the other coach name of the Timberwolves, but yeah, that's their, so they both have advantage and disadvantages that I just explained throughout the video, right? So, yeah, the Timberwolves, they just watch the film, see the Warriors' weakness, and they can. I think the Warriors are the 7th seed, right? And this is 6th seed. This is not the 2 versus 3, right? Usually the top team, but yeah, like I said, top team can be too fraud and they get eliminated early, right? The Lakers been playing all the depleted teams in the NBA, and this is why, they have a really good record, right? And record doesn't mean crap at the end of the day, right? And the Houston Rockets, they play well, their regular season team, because they're young, but they'll get some learning. I feel like they're going to be a really dangerous team in the next couple years. So, yeah, they're just like the new, the 2 new. I feel like they folded Game 7, and I knew they're going to be a lot of pressure. And, yeah, Game 7 is a whole different story, right? Comparing, to the entire series, right? If it's Game 7 again, then who'd I pick this time? I think I gotta have to pick the Warriors, right? That's another iffy one because the Timberwolves actually beat the defending champ Denver Nuggets last year, right? And the Warriors, they experienced, it's still a 50-50, right? This is probably going to be a closer series than the Denver Nuggets versus the Clippers, just based on what I'm saying, right? This could be a very close series again, so hopefully, I don't think there'll be a blowout, right? So, yeah, that Pistons versus the Knicks series can also be closer than this one, but this could be the closest series that we ever watch in our eyes, right? Unless if an injury happened, then, then the series can, switch either way. So, whoever got the injuries, unfortunately, right? Jimmy Butler just got injured versus, the Houston Rocket, right? So, yeah, so because the Golden State Warriors are higher in standing, so the Warriors have the home court advantage, obviously, right? So maybe I'm picking Golden State, to be honest, because they have the home court advantage and they have the experience, right? Just like the Denver Nuggets. Now, if that Game 7 was at the Clipper, then Clipper might beat the Nuggets, right? So I don't care, if you say Clipper better than Nugget or Nugget better than Clipper, doesn't matter anyway. They're both about the same. If it's Game 7, then both teams are equally strength, right? Doesn't matter who choked Game 7 or not, right? Same thing with Golden State Warrior or Timberwolves. If it goes to Game 7, then either of those teams are just about the same level. So they look very much the same, intriguing. The Golden States are older and weaker, while the Timberwolves are younger and hungrier, right? The Timberwolves been to the playoffs like in 4 years, so they do have some experience, right? But can Anthony Edwards can be better than Stephen Curry? That's all I need to know. And we will find out, in 2 weeks when one team's get eliminated and the other team advance, right? To face whoever the winner of the OKC, versus, the Denver Nuggets, right? So, yeah, see, I have to break out an analogy like that, like who is going to face who, right? So, yeah, and when we get to the conference final, then I have to make a very deep analysis because that matchup is going to be very important. It's going to get bigger and bigger and tougher and grindier, and hopefully, the series get a lot tougher than this, right? I'm just hoping. So, it is what it is, right?